Hi, I'm Doreen Barnes, and welcome to Reader's Corner. It's kind of a sad day for me because the Seaway Valley, Queen of the Crime, here in Eastern Ontario, the Lost Villages with Farron Mackenzie, and it's coming to an end. And Maggie Wheeler's here with me, and I've told her if I end up crying before we end this segment, it's her fault.
And I didn't bring a hanky.
And you didn't bring a hanky. Well, Maggie, thank you for sitting down with me today.
Oh, absolutely, my
and
pleasure.
All joking to one side, this is going to be the final interview that we have on the Farron Mackenzie Lost Villages.
That's the plan.
Yeah, it is. Oh, you mean there could be another one?
Well, life teaches you to never say never again.
Okay.
Right?
All righty. Why? Tell us why you wanted to end it now.
Well, there were two reasons.
Okay.
The first one was creative, because it would be very easy for me, as someone who really enjoys writing a good mystery, almost as much as I like reading one. I love mysteries. And to do it, and I've been successful over the past 25 years, and I could keep doing it, especially with the Seaway and the Lost Villages, because the history is bottomless. And if you decide that you don't have enough to go on the Canadian side, there's the whole American story, which happened at the same time, but quite different. But as an artist, and I think also as a human being, you need to always keep growing and evolving. And I thought, I can keep doing this and enjoying it, but I'm not going to keep growing. And the second thing was that I ran into what I call the Christie problem.
Okay.
Agatha Christie published her first book, The Mysterious Ferret Styles, in 1920, and the world got Hercule Poirot. She never thought in her wildest dreams she was going to be writing about him 50 years later. And she said, which was true, he was retired from the Belgian police force before he was a refugee and came to England. So he was in his early 60s when that started. And in the early 70s, before she passed away, she said, I made him too old. He's got to be 120 by now. Exactly. And but the public still wanted more of him. So we just all pretended it was perfectly fine. And as you go through my series, I think it's about by the third one, I start having notes saying, I know that we're kind of out of sync with real time. And so, but I'm writing as fast as I can. And actually, with the last two books, it means that, for instance, Jerry Strauss is moving into his 80s.
Yes.
And Farron is in her late 60s or mid to late 60s. And over the series, she's, had her moments running from murderers, leaping out of the way of a car bearing down on her to kill her. She had to throw herself through a glass window out of a burning house to save her own life. Kind of hard in your 60s, and I can vouch for that. So I thought, okay, there comes a point when the original crew needs to be able to tie up their loose ends, find a good place to be, and I'll leave them have a nice, quiet time moving forward.
So your release is The Last Wave By.
Mm-hmm.
The title, I love it. But why this title?
Well, every single title of all of my books comes from another piece of literature, a quote that I think really sets off the story. And that comes from that beautiful poem by Dylan Thomas, Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night. And it's to do with brave men, the last wave by, cry how bright their deeds might have shone in a green bay. And so it's about, because the two books, especially the final one, is about, and Farron is doing that in her life, reassessing the past and their lives as a whole. And so I just thought, it was funny because usually I would start the book and I'd already have the title, but I had started that book and I still didn't have it. And I thought, okay, just wait, it will come to you. And sure enough, it did. And I thought, that's exactly it. And of course, in the final scene, we won't give anything away, but there's a final scene where something is going past and all these people are standing there watching it and they're giving it the last wave by.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I read it, saw the title. So let's back up just a little bit, okay? So your sixth book.
Yes.
It's a sixth one. All Will Fall Together. Now, this is where Jerry, he was arrested.
Yes.
So, I can understand why people would say, Maggie, you can't leave him arrested. You've got to do something. We just got, you really do. So I can understand why you would write the last one, pull
Yes.
everyone together. But you threw me for a loop there. I wasn't expecting that. Not at all. And I thought, okay, where's she going? What is she doing to me? But yeah. And on top of that, you bring Stephanie home.
Yes.
Oh, just explain to our viewers who Stephanie is, please.
Stephanie
because
is
they might not remember.
Farron's daughter, the one she gave up when she was in university, and they reconnected in the 4th book, On a Darkling Plain.
Yes.
She's there as a presence through all the books, but it doesn't culminate until the 4th book.
And she really does come home.
Yes.
Like she planted her feet.
She comes
Yes.
home, they
Yes.
have their time, they have their discussions, they come together. Her life is in Central Ontario, but she comes home again because, and this is about 5 years now between the time that book 4 ended, and I won't say what happened at the end of book 4 either because I don't want to ruin anything, but it was about the fact that even though she was still in Central Ontario, because her life had been in Central Ontario with her adoptive parents who had passed away, but it was also about the fact that, yes, Jerry, first at the end of book 5, he's brought in for questioning, just questioning as a person of interest. And then when he's arrested, of course, the double whammy is that the charges that he has murdered the husband of a woman he was supposed to be having an affair with. So that would bring your daughter
Yes.
home.
I think it would. I think it definitely would. But on the other hand, anybody who knows Jerry would think, really? Come on, that's Jerry.
That's exactly the
hero.
mechanics of what's happening and of course the title is All Will Fall Together, because for the last 2 books, and with each book I have experimented with different things because again, I want to keep working as an artist.
Yes.
With the last 2 books, they operate quite differently from all of the first 5.
I agree.
And the reason for that is the fact that Jerry has been pulled out of the center of the story, and he's there. But he has operated in the first 5 as not only the person who takes care of people as a police officer, but also someone who quietly, while Farron's bouncing off walls and discovering murderers, he takes care of his people as well. And this time he can't. And as you say, they're sitting there stunned thinking, but that's not Jerry. But Jerry's not saying anything. He won't see anybody, not even Farron. All he'll do is see his lawyer. He's saying nothing, releasing no statement, nothing. And the longer it goes on, the more it looks as though perhaps it could be true.
Right.
So they're all in a bad place because nobody wants to look Farron in the eye if they're growing this suspicion because they know it will break her. So they all go off in different directions and start doing their own investigation, which is why over the course of the 2 books, it happens and it works and it comes together at the very end because they're all separate. They all fall together and then they come back together.
Yes, all the pieces.
All the pieces.
All the pieces. As you were talking about Jerry, I was thinking about their marriage. There was a little bit of distance between them.
Yes.
Jerry had retired.
Yes.
I mean, this is a man that was always working, loved people, was out there all the time.
Yes.
And now he didn't have to get up in the morning.
That's
didn't have
true.
to go anywhere.
That's true. And that's
So,
very hard.
Yes.
That's very hard.
Definitely.
And I think when I look at the 2 of them, first of all, we're looking at 2 adults who spent their whole lives as loners for different reasons, right? And they found each other and their relationship is real and it's strong, but they don't have the emotional intelligence that most of their peers would have because of that. Secondly, I know from experience also that often when you have 2 people who deeply respect each other, sometimes that can backfire.
Okay.
Because if somebody is having problems with something, the other person, out of respect, may decide, I'm going to give them the space to deal with it because I don't want them thinking that I'm hovering, that they can't handle it.
Yes.
And you end up with a failure to communicate and you end up with a silent wall between the 2 of you.
Okay.
And it's not because there's a lack of love and respect. It's because there's a little too much respect, which is a weird way of explaining it, but you understand what I mean.
Yes, I do. The communication has broken down.
Yes.
There's not, if they had continued to communicate, there wouldn't be all this. Yes. I can understand. And from that, by not communicating, other problems do arise.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Are we friends again?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think so. Yes. Yes. Okay. Good. So, was there really a train robbery. It is in the book, but I'm not going to go into depth in it. I just
Right.
want to know because some of this, you do a lot of research. You always
I do.
have.
I do.
And I don't know. I know that there's a lot of interest in this area
Mhm.
with trains, the older trains, and there's train buffs.
Right.
And I just wondered, was there ever a train robbery?
Not during the Seaway years that I
Okay.
knew of.
Okay.
But it certainly could have happened because we had so many extra people
Yeah.
in the area.
Mhm.
So the banks literally had to handle a lot more money because they would get
Yes.
pay from not necessarily the bank. They get a pay somewhere. They'd run tabs in the stores. It wasn't so much like it was, let's say, in the 1980s where it was cash on the barrel. But certainly you had this influx of people for almost 3.5 years. And the banks had to have the extra payroll to do it. And I thought, yes, and they would probably bring it in on the train, it being the most secure, because we still
Sense,
wouldn't have
yeah.
had the 401 at that time.
No.
It wasn't completed, absolutely completed till 64. And so I thought that would make sense. And especially the timing, because at the time of the robbery, a lot of the villages had disappeared and there were all kinds of people everywhere. There was a
Yes.
lot going on. So you could pull something like that off,
Mhm.
whereas you couldn't have perhaps 3 to 4 years before because village life was very quiet and people would have been on it like that.
Oh yeah, they
Mhm.
noticed it.
Yes.
But like neighborhood watch.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
When you had was writing about the train robbery, when I was reading it, what came to mind was years ago when Wells Fargo used to
Mhm.
transport money on trains.
Yes.
Yes, and then we always had the guards there. And I thought, oh, we're way back there. Okay.
Mhm.
But it was
Mhm. It would,
basically similar.
and it
So it never did. So yeah, you
never
had
did
me.
that I know
Yeah.
of, not during the Seaway years
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All righty. So why did Jerry want to bring back Paul Vaughn? Why?
Well,
Why?
Paul is now, we have to be careful here again
Yes,
if
I
someone
yeah,
has
yeah.
not read the
Yeah,
earlier books.
I know, but
But
okay.
Paul
Yes.
has, aside from who he actually is, it's always been a difficulty because there's been a bit of competition between the two of them, especially initially when Paul first showed up. He was in competition for Farron's interest as well, way back a few
Okay.
books.
Okay, yes. But
And
that's
so,
yes.
yes.
But I guess because of what he was doing
Mhm.
in Newfoundland.
Yes, Paul is a police officer as well.
Yes.
And so, as with in book four, Jerry also said to somebody in particular, bring him home.
And why?
Because his hands were tied. He had an
Yes.
investigation
Yes.
which involved Farron, and so he couldn't go near her with a 10-foot pole,
Mhm.
but he wanted someone that he knew. So even though they're competitors and there's some, I don't know if it's antagonistic's a little bit strong, but they do respect each other. And he
Yes.
knows that
Yes.
Paul is a good cop,
Mhm.
someone he can trust, and someone who has the training to step into those shoes for him when he needs to.
Right.
And so once again, it's like, bring him home because he's the person that will kind of take over and watch over Farron and watch over everybody. Because even from behind bars, Jerry's worrying about his people.
Yeah. He
Mhm.
had to turn to someone.
Yes.
And it was, yeah. Yeah. See, I didn't see that one coming either.